This podcast is a Tom production recorded on Aboriginal land.
Media is not what it used to be. Even I know that now. In launching a brand, I wouldn't book an ad, you know? Yeah. I would book an influencer to create content for me.
Welcome to Process the Podcast, where I interview the creme de la creme of Australia's creative talent across fashion, film, design, media, pretty much all creative disciplines, all about their unique creative process. I'm your host, Arielle Thomas, motion director, social strategist, founder of creative agency Cinema Tom, and wellness gummy brand Remy. In these episodes, I also share my own creative process, the highs and lows, building my dream creative career, building a team, and building a suite of global clients. I share pretty much everything that I'm learning along the way. If you're someone with big creative ideas and the ambition to bring them to life, this podcast is for you. As always, these are very visual people talking about very visual things, so head over to @ProcessThePodcast and follow along as we give you context to not only hear what these creatives are talking about, but you can see it too. Let's dive in. I'm so excited to chat to you.
I know, me too. There's a lot to unpack.
Yeah, there is.
And we have such a history because we worked together so many years ago. I don't even know how long ago that was.
That would have been 5, Wolf Banjo's 5.5.
Yeah.
That would have been probably 6 years ago because you were pregnant. Remember your piece for George Jensen and you had the bump?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That would have been the first time.
Was that the first one? Was that the one at Jules's house?
Mm-hmm. No, that was
the second one.
That was the second one. The first one was you and Matt. Steve Cordoni.
At that amazing house with the staircase.
And Jeet and Jeet's mum. What's Jeet's mum's? Akala.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Oh my God. Yeah, we did so many.
Yeah, that was crazy.
So many.
But that job was wild because I think everyone in every conversation was in tears.
Yeah.
That was crazy. And I didn't really realize that I had that capability as a director.
Yeah.
Like I knew I could ask the questions and guide people through conversation.
Yeah. And I think in that role, you almost have to kind of disassociate with the talent a little bit.
Yeah.
But yes, every single shoot I think we ever did for those campaigns, whether it was like their Love Ring one or if it was for the OCRF as well.
Yeah.
Everyone cried.
Yeah.
There was often a big emotional release.
Yeah, totally.
The shoots.
It was wild as a director because it was you, first of all. I'm working for you.
Yeah,
it was you and I was
client and talent.
And I was fangirling and I was like, oh my God.
Oh, no.
And then I was like, and not probing, but asking those hard-hitting questions to work with you and Matt to get that emotional flow going. I could basically recite your script.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because we worked on it, the melody of your words in that to tell the story of it. And I think that piece as well has gotten me so many other jobs working with people.
So much.
I ended up getting a huge job straight after COVID because they saw the Gritty Pretty piece that I did with you specifically because it was the first one on the page with 3 women that had been diagnosed and were working through the chemotherapy of breast cancer at the time. And that piece and being able to drop in the way that we did it because it was obviously all the beiges and the really nice tonals and it was just so beautiful. They were like, we love this. We want it to feel luxurious. And pairing emotion and luxury doesn't necessarily happen.
It's very hard to do.
Yeah. So I feel
without it coming across as contrived.
Yeah. So thanks for letting me.
It makes me so happy.
Yeah.
I love hearing that.
Yeah. It was a very, very good job to then move through my own career with. But you and your career, you started so young.
So young.
What do we have to know about you?
Why I'm still at 12.
Yeah. And your Filipino nature. I now work so often in the Philippines. It's really weird. Yeah. I've got Filipinos everywhere.
I'm dying to go back. I haven't been back since I got married.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It's just before COVID.
I'm there every 2 months for a week.
Oh,
all the time for work. Yeah, because we've got Anko stores there, Kmart stores.
Okay.
So I'm on the global expansion. It's insane.
I remember you working with Kmart. I think we're going to go back next year for my husband's 40th.
Yeah, it's a good time.
To Shagao, yeah.
If Banjo or Rumi need to do any modelling, we always cast half Filipino.
Absolutely not. Not.
Just in case, you've got a new product coming out, you need some cash.
You just brought back so many memories to me as a child, though, when my sister and I would go there and, you were accosted on the street.
Yeah.
Because if you were Eurasian, people could tell right away if you were, biracial and you had a little bit of Filipino, the model scouts would grab you.
Yeah.
Or the TV scouts, talent scouts.
Because that's what's aspirational to them.
Yeah. I remember my mum was so into it. And we were just like, no.
Yeah, it's
But
crazy.
yeah, no, my kids would never do
The
that.
model scouting's really interesting over there.
Yeah.
It's wild. So what do we have to know about you to understand your ambition? Because you started very young, internships at like Cosmo. And I feel like if we were to write down your CV, it's wild how many Australian publications you've touched.
Yeah.
But what was your first job? After the internship at Cosmo, you moved into Cosmo to actually have a job, right?
Yeah. When you asked that question, I was thinking of my first job when I was 12 years old, which
What was that?
actually was being a paper girl at my dad's news agency, and I couldn't wait to work and earn money. So I delivered newspapers.
Love that.
But my first real corporate job, big girl job, was as the editorial coordinator and beauty writer for all of Cosmopolitan's sister titles. So,
whoa.
This must have been going back to 2008. And I hadn't even finished my university degree. I'd done my first year and then I was offered a job. But it was a really unique role because it was not only the entry-level role, which is essentially editorial coordinator is a glorified title for receptionist at a magazine. You're that first person. When anyone walks into a magazine, you represent the title. But then it was also a dual role, and I was those titles only beauty writer. There was no beauty editor who sat above me. So it was a really interesting role to have as a 19-year-old.
Yeah.
And I worked across all of Cosmo's sister titles, which at the time was like Cosmo Bride, Cosmo Pregnancy, Cosmo Hair and Beauty. There was Cosmo Zest at one point, which was like their health title. And it was an amazing first role because I basically got this front row seat to seeing how publications were put together.
Yeah.
How they were paginated, how they were created, how shoots were orchestrated, how much time and research went into writing articles. And then I was also ordering stationery and fetching coffees and doing photocopying and issuing invoices. So it was an amazing role to just be thrown into the deep end at someone who wasn't even 20 years of age.
Yeah. That's wild. A lot of responsibility.
It was, but I loved it and I knew how much responsibility it was. And so every day for me was like, how can I rise to the occasion here?
Yeah.
And I mean, thinking back then, I think I was on salary of like $20,000 a year.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it was wild and most definitely an illegal wage.
That's crazy. I remember like thinking I was moving over my old email, like the one that you had when you were a teenager and you're embarrassed about that one. I moved everything over that could be essential from that, like my first bank account or whatever the other day, and I pulled out my old Scanlon Theodore pay slips. I was on $10.65. I was like, oh my God. And I thought it was, and I was doing like 28 hours a week or something, like, because I was in high school. It was $280 and I was like, I'm killing it. Like,
and that probably was award wage back then.
That was.
Especially for retail.
Yeah. And I remember all my friends were at Grilled and they were like, oh, but you're on 10, I'm on 9. So like, you're pretty lucky. And I was like, oh yeah, okay. No, I'm good where I am. Like, and I get to wear heels and like play the part.
That feeling though gives me so much nostalgia, like thinking back to, regardless of the money. And for me, getting into that line of work, getting into media, I was not driven by financial freedom. That was not a concern. Yeah. Like I was in it for the love of publishing. But I remember that feeling of, you feel like you're a big girl in a big world. And you've got your kitten heel on. And I look back on those times so fondly because I met two of my best friends in the world in those hallways of ACP magazines, and we were all in it together. We were all little coordinators on Cosmo titles, Madison magazine back in the day, and the three of us have just really special memories from that time.
What about you then had such a hustle about it? Like, where did it come from? Was it your upbringing or were you just really hungry?
I have always been very tenacious. I remember probably being about 10, 11 years old, and my dad ran a local news agency. We were very much a working class family. My mum was a stay-at-home mum. My dad had this small business, and after school I would catch the bus from school to his shop and wait for him to basically close up the shop. and I would be able to sit at the back and just read whatever magazine I wanted.
Yeah, okay.
And so I had like full access to Cleo and Cosmo and Dolly and Girlfriend, and I mean there was even like smash hits and TV hits back then.
Yeah.
And I knew that that's what I wanted to do. Like I just knew as a very, very young girl that regardless of the fact that I had no family connections to that world, we lived outside of Sydney, you know, I was enamored by magazines. And when I would open them up, the first thing I wanted to read was always the editor's letter.
Really?
It was always the first thing. I would read the editor's letter and then I would read the masthead and look at people's names who I did not know. But I was so fascinated by the people who made this tangible, tactile publication. And yeah, I think I decided from a very young age that that's what I was going to do with my life. And even in high school, even though, again, I didn't know anyone, we didn't have any family connections, there was no like special person to help get me a foot in the door, I still, I think, intrinsically knew that you had to do work experience.
Yeah.
You had to work for free. You had to basically give up your time and efforts to learn. And so that's what I basically started planning in my final year of high school was how do I get an internship? How do I do work experience? And I think, I don't know for whatever reason, but I think even back then when I set my mind to something, I was like, this is what I will do. And there's no other option. There's no option for failure. There is no, I don't want to be a vet. I don't want to be a nurse. I don't want to do anything else. And so I will move mountains to basically work at a magazine.
Wow.
Yeah.
All part of the plan. Okay.
All part of the plan until it wasn't.
So if we go from 19 to starting Gritty Pretty, top line, what happened?
So
you
I
moved
must
to bounce
have been,
around a lot.
Yeah, I worked in a lot of different magazines as a beauty editor. I obviously worked on all of Cosmo's sister titles. I worked on Famous magazine, which was like basically a version of Instagram and TikTok before those things arrived. It was where you got your paparazzi shots. It's where you learned about celebrities.
Yeah. It's crazy that that's where we would see like Jacob Elordi walking down the street.
Exactly. Yeah. And it was probably like a month ago, but that's how it happened. And so I worked on those titles, which was really interesting to work on a tabloid. I worked on InStyle magazine for quite a few years. And then I left InStyle, I think I must have been like 25 years of age, which is quite young now when I look back. And I just wanted to write for other titles. I'd kind of spent 3, almost 4 years on InStyle. They had a very conservative, almost dry tone to the way that we would write copy. And I think I just kind of got a bit tired of writing in a style the same way over and over and over. So I wanted to write for the other magazines like Harper's and even some of the newspapers like the Sydney Morning Herald, Body and Soul inserts. I wanted to write for US publications, like digital ones back then, which back then was like Refinery 29 was huge. And so I quit to go freelance. And then at that time, that's when I had Gritty Pretty sitting dormant while I had been focusing on my magazine career. And I decided I'll start it again just to get that spark back in the way that I would write copy. I'd lost that and I wanted to write with personality and make copy a little bit more colourful and fun, which beauty should be.
Yeah.
And so I started that back up again as an outlet. And then very quickly, because of the relationships I already had established over the last maybe 7-8 years in publishing, I started having beauty brands approach me to be able to spend their advertising dollars with Gritty Pretty.
Yeah, right.
And then at that point, I was still very much freelancing and I thought, well, okay, if they see the value in this platform and in its reader, I think it can be a business. It can be something all on its own. But it needed something. It needed something different that the other blogs or websites, whatever you want to call them, didn't have at the time. And that's basically when I had the idea of like, okay, well, if I want to read the magazine, I have to go spend $10. I've got to get it from the news agency and then I can read whatever I want, but I can't shop anything. So that's when I thought, well, what if I create this digital publication that's completely free for readers to access, no matter where they are in the world, whatever device they're on, and everything is interactive and shoppable.
Right.
And I thought, that's something different. That's what I want to read when I'm on the train going into the city.
Yeah, okay.
So that was kind of it. And then I thought, I'm going to just create that. And it was as matter of fact as that. I had the idea, and the next day it was just about putting together the plan to build it.
So when you were doing that, you also had a personal profile at this stage, right?
Oh, I mean, it was very small. I think I had my own personal Instagram account, because Instagram was 2011.
Yeah.
So it was probably about 2014, 2015. And I think there was like a very small following there. But it took me a little while to realize that with Gritty Pretty, when creating content, people are interested in its founder.
Yeah.
And at first I was very uncomfortable with that.
Really?
Because I'd spent my entire career behind a page.
Yeah, okay.
You know, I had a byline, and that was the extent of it.
Yeah.
But when I realized that anything that I would share on a personal level, whether it was, anecdotes of something I had been trialing and testing for work, people became so much more engaged.
Yeah, okay.
The readers were so much more engaged. And so it very much was a conscious decision to go, okay, I think I need to inject part of me as founder to be a bit more forward-facing. And I still remember the first shoot I did with now a girl who is a very, very dear friend. And I felt like a deer in headlights. I was just like, I don't know what to do here at all. And that was just really strange.
Yeah.
So I think very quickly I ended up developing these skills of learning how to be a talent in front of the camera, which helped me so much when I was producing and directing behind it. It taught me how to make people feel comfortable on set, because I'd been in many situations where I didn't feel comfortable.
Yeah.
And then there was also, on top of that, the other side of creating content, whether it was in written form, and then also just operating a business, the ebbs and flows and the cash flow that comes with that. So everything was very much learned on the fly.
As it always is.
Yeah.
So when you started Gritty Pretty and you realized, oh, hang on, this is actually monetizable, do you think that if that moment was now, it'd be a Substack?
That's a good question, actually. I think it would be a culmination of Substack, TikTok, and Instagram.
Oh, okay.
And it wouldn't be so much as a website platform.
Yeah,
I think the media has evolved so much, and I witnessed that over the last couple of years, that I think you can have readers who come to a branded platform to different platforms.
Yeah.
The same way with podcasts. Some people listen to them and some people watch them.
Yeah.
So I think it would have been a mixture.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So when you were getting started with it all, it was just you behind a laptop?
Yeah.
How did you plan it?
I called up one of my very best friends who was a graphic designer, and she was working at a fashion label, an Australian designer at the time, and I said, I have this crazy idea to produce a digital magazine. Do you want to help me do it? And she was like, yeah, sure. And then it was a matter of calling upon the people I had developed relationships with, photographers, makeup artists, stylists, to help me produce the content that went into our very first issue.
Yeah.
And a lot of those were favors. Like back then I had literally no money. Yeah. So it was like, can we do this for mates rates?
Yeah.
And I still made sure that I honored those working relationships with those people, and I worked with them 10 years on, paying them what they so fairly should have been paid. But it was honestly a lot of favors. It was me writing all of the articles. It was my girlfriend, who was the designer, designing those art pages 4, 5, 6 different ways, and then working out what do I want the style guide to look like. There was a lot of that. There was a lot of 2 a.m. mornings getting it finished.
Wow.
Yeah, they were like what I kind of look back on as like the real hustle years of my 20s.
Yeah, absolutely. And how did you go about finding the brands and stuff that you needed to like pay the way of the mag?
So the first issue, we had one paying advertiser. The rest I comped and just gave them free ads. And the first one was Balmain Fragrances.
Yeah.
And I still hold them close to my heart because of that. But it was a lot of cold calling. It was a lot of going out into the pavement and walking into advertising agencies and saying, hi,
Yeah.
I'm creating this digital magazine. Do you want to book an ad in it?
Yeah.
Which takes, I think, a lot of confidence to do that, but I believed so fiercely in the concept. It didn't exist. And so it was very difficult to be able to show them this is what it's going to look like before I could be published online.
Yeah.
And being able to articulate, okay, well, if you go on your screen, if you go on your phone and you swipe on this page, your beautiful makeup compact is going to open and close and spin around.
Yeah, okay.
That hadn't been done before.
Yeah.
And so there was a lot of, I guess, like education from my end on trying to get these advertising agency account managers to understand what it was going to be.
Mm.
And so for that reason, like I said, I had to give away a lot of free ads just for them to believe in it. But once we had done the first issue, I then had something to show.
Yeah.
So it made selling advertising space a lot easier as the process went on, and then eventually grew into an advertising team who would do that for me.
Yeah. How did you go selling it when you had very little? No, obviously you kind of launched with a bang. I remember it. But when there wasn't like readership numbers that were as flashy as the other people that they would be talking to, how did you get them on side?
Well, yeah, I think back then we probably had maybe like 30, 40,000 unique browsers every month, but they were there for one reason and one reason only, and that was because they were interested in beauty.
Yeah, okay.
And I think at the time,
so they were very warm leads that they were.
Very much so. And it was a small audience, but it was an engaged audience. And back then, that's when the pop sugars and pedestrians of the world, were in that space. But, maybe half of their readership were male and half of them were based in Dubai.
Yeah.
And so I think even though we had a smaller pool, they were over 80% of them were in Australia. They were women aged 25 to 35. They were engaged and they loved beauty. And so it was more about selling to brands who they were, not just the volume of who they were.
Right. So when you take it from there to you on the pavement to then you having an advertising team, or even to the point where we had George Jensen and you're hiring people like me flying up from Melbourne to Sydney to join you, and we had who shot that? Tane Coffin. Yeah. Like the most amazing teams and beautiful environments to work in that you were crafting. Like your set is something that I've taken with me through my whole career because it was so calm and it was lovely.
Yeah.
So two parts, I guess. How did you go about then building up Gritty Pretty so much so that you then had obviously like a P&L to be like, I need an advertising team. Like, let's go.
It was a very slow and intentional process. So I did everything in the beginning. I was every single hat. There was no one else. And so once we kind of got to a point where the business was bringing in enough revenue where I thought, okay, I think there's enough here to be able to support a salary for someone else. That was when I started the process of, okay, I think we can bring in a revenue raising role, like an advertising sales manager. Someone who can also bring in revenue and start there, which is scary to do in those early days because you in the back of your mind, you're like, well, do I continue to have the revenue that's going to support this person's salary?
Yeah.
I would hate to employ them and then have to let them go. But I did it once I was pretty confident that the business could support it. And then it was just like a very organic process. It just kind of then spiraled. Once they came on, then I had someone else full-time dedicated to be able to bring in revenue. And then I thought, okay, well, maybe we can now hire a beauty editor. And it was just this very organic process that I was very mindful of. I was quite slow to hire because I wanted to be intentional about it.
Who was your first hire?
It was a advertising role. It was
right.
An advertising manager, a national advertising manager. Just someone to alleviate that from me, so I could also produce the magazine issues. And so it was just something that took time, I guess. Yeah.
When we talk about the piece that you mentioned before around being in a space where the founder is valued as well and people really want to see that. So many women I know are like, oh, if I was just on TikTok, I'm sure this brand would blow up. Like, and that kind of thought.
I can't do TikTok.
How did you back then, pre-Banjo and the fam and starting that world, pre-motherhood, when you've got a bit more time on your hands, how did you get out of, because Gritty Pretty was a startup, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
The thought of, okay, cool, I'm on today, I've got a team, I'm running this as a business, and then being like, Elle, can we just get you in a little video quickly? We're just going to do, like, how did you flip-flop that mindset?
Pretty easily, to be honest, because I knew that but by me doing that brought value to whatever we were doing or to whatever client we were working with. Maybe there was a client who bought into a package where that was built in. And so I understood pretty quickly the value in my time and efforts in doing that.
Which I love that you're just so hard facts about it. You're like, well, duh. Like,
well, it's sort of like, if I didn't, this client's not going to be thrilled.
Yeah, but so many people are like, well, they don't want to see me. It's not about me. And we like kind of, as women, like run around in circles and we're like hiding from it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I ever had that mindset, because my mindset has always been there are always going to be like-minded women to you.
Yeah.
And so whenever we were publishing anything, whether it was a podcast or creating a community event or publishing an issue of the digital magazine, whatever we as women, as an all-female team were creating, I knew that there were other women just like us.
Yeah.
And so I don't think I ever had that mindset, because I knew that if it meant me jumping in front of the camera or whatever I had to do, I knew that that was going to connect with people, and the value in that connection is something that I always appreciated, because without the reader, without the viewer, we had nothing.
Yeah.
And so it was almost, by doing so, we had this like incredible two-way dialogue with them. We basically had this free focus group with our readers, because they would say, oh, can you tell us about retinol next week? Or, is this product really good? Should I really spend my money on it?
Yeah.
And so they almost fed the content.
Yeah, I remember when we did La Mer, and they were readers.
They were all readers.
That was crazy.
Yeah.
So if we recap that concept, it was like, there were 5 of them maybe?
Yeah. So we had our trial teams, and that was a really novel idea at the time. I don't think any publication was shooting their readers.
Yeah.
And putting them in the pages. No one was doing that yet.
Yeah.
But again, I thought, well, other readers want to see other women.
Yeah.
And these are not models, these are not celebrities, which we do make space for that level of aspiration, but we also want to put the spotlight on real women.
Yeah, it was pretty refreshing walking into this like epic house. It was like a bougie, pure location, super stunning. It was on Whale Beach, ocean views. And the background was them kind of on this terrace, obviously La Mer. How you going? The ocean's right behind
always
you.
Close by.
It was so stunning to see these women who came in. They were pretty shy, I guess you could say, timid as well, nervous. Yeah. They'd had the product for 30 days or however long. And they knew the retail value of a La Mer product, but they were like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm doing this. And they got their makeup done and they sat down in front of us. And we were like, so what do you think? And I remember one girl, don't remember her name, but 1 out of 5 was like, I don't think I'd buy it because I just don't know. I don't think it's that much different to what I had before. And she was so nervous to say that because of the grandeur. But we were like, no, that's the point. Like, you're supposed to say that. Yeah. And I don't actually recall what happened in the rollout of that piece of her specific moment saying, oh, it's not for me. But I remember I asked you and I was like, oh, what do we do? She's just said she doesn't like it. And you're like, no, that's the point. Like, that's the whole point, which was so refreshing, because usually my job is to be like, tell us how much you loved it. And they're like,
sell.
Yeah. And it was so nice. So where did that kind of come from, and what else did you guys do at Gritty Pretty? I know you had the no bullshit. It was very no BS.
Yeah, very much so. And I think anyone who knows me, that's just how I am as a person. So I think that really stemmed from me. But I don't know. I mean, I think going back to your question about the sets that we would create when we were producing a lot of these content campaigns, the energy that we would produce was something I would place a huge amount of focus on very early on. And I think a lot of that is because when I worked in magazines, I was on set of a lot of different situations that weren't pleasant.
Yeah.
And they didn't have good energy, and you could see the talent being spoken about as if they're not there. And I never wanted to create a workplace, which is essentially what it was, like that.
Yeah.
And so creating these, warm, supportive, calm environments, but also knowing that when I brought people into the fold, whether it was photographers, videographers, hair and makeup artists, talent, everyone we brought in was brought in for their specific skill set.
Yeah.
And they were brought in intentionally for a reason. And I've never been one to micromanage. You know, we've always, you know, we may have had our brief and our objectives, but I knew that every single person had their little bit of magic. And if you let people do that on set and you don't coddle anyone, that's when you get amazing content.
Yeah.
And so I think I knew that from a very early stage. And then I would really make sure that I drove that home with my production team once they were hired to make sure that they maintained that for me on set. Because, you know, towards the end of Gritty's tenure, I wasn't always on set. I had a team doing that.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember when we did Jules and Guy Sebastian. I looked back over at you and you just had this like proud mum look in your eye, your arms across, and you were like, yes. Because they'd hit their like emotional mark in a really natural way. Yeah. And it was when Guy was saying that he writes on her arm, I love you, and then he wipes it off like a whiteboard. And the little sparkle in your eye was so cute. I was like, yes, we've done her proud.
Yes. Yes.
So when you were moving through the motions of Gritty Pretty, what are some of the things that you were the most proud of that achieved? Because you really did change.
I mean, I think I can proudly say now that I think we pioneered a space in digital publishing that no one else had. And I think I would have been very uncomfortable admitting that years ago. But I think
at the time.
Yeah. But I think now that I can stop and reflect, there was no one doing what we were. Vogue wasn't, Harper's wasn't, Elle wasn't, Marie Claire wasn't. And we were doing that with a brand that was self-funded, that did not have, you know, this incredible heritage that some of the Vogues and Harpers of the world have. And so I think what we did was not just impressive, but it was real and it was authentic because we connected with readers in a way that I don't think they had been connected with before. And I saw that when I worked at magazines, we didn't really know. I didn't know who read In Style when I'd spent, you know, weeks or months writing a story. I couldn't have told you. I didn't know who bought the magazine. I couldn't have told you anything about her. But once we had established Gritty Pretty, I could tell you everything about who those women were. And I think that's what I'm most proud of, is the connection that we established with women in general.
Right. Yeah. What was the decision to keep it self-funded? Because I'm sure that you would have had conversations with Matt around the dinner table being like, oh, God, look, what's the options here? What do we do?
Yeah, there were definitely conversations that were had. We were approached by other publishing houses for investment or equity or acquisition. And there were a few of them that just values did not align.
Yeah.
And I don't think in good conscience I could have sold off part of or all of the business to a business that I didn't believe in.
Yeah.
And so that was a large factor. And then also, I think when some businesses are acquired, they lose their magic.
Yeah.
You know, that
totally.
That beautiful creativity and agility that comes with being a startup business is lost when a larger corporation comes in and implements its systems and processes and its company culture. I think that's often why you see businesses then later fail after they're acquired. And for me, it was probably also a level of didn't want to lose control. You know, like I had full control over the brand and the business and how we made decisions. So we definitely explored that during those years. And we even explored that after I had closed the business because we were approached afterwards. But again, it was just about they're not the right fit.
Everything that you come to as like a decision feels so intuitive to you and the way that you speak about it. So obviously Gritty Pretty now is no longer. What was the moment and where were you in the landscape? You had a podcast, you had so much going. Where was the moment where you were like, oh, this is shifting now?
It was definitely after I had my daughter. So she was born in 2023, at the beginning of the year. And it was probably closer towards her turning 12 months of age that I realized not only is the media landscape shifting, but I have shifted. And I think in the role that I had as a mother, I felt so stretched by not just being able to show up for my 2 children to the best of my ability, but also show up for my team to the best of my ability and to show up to our clients and to our readers. And so I felt at that point, when she was about 1 year, I think she was about, 1 at that time, I felt like I had all of these buckets and I was giving 10% to everyone.
Yeah, okay.
And at this time, I had been silently working on Haleau. Haleau had been an idea that I had had for like 7-8 years. I'd finally started the manufacturing process and coming up with formulas with a chemist. And so I was kind of running this business in the daytime, looking after my children, going home, just trying to start a new business. And I just couldn't do it all.
Was Gritty Pretty to that point, like everyone kind of knew you were scaling, like it was on the up?
Yeah.
Teams were growing more.
Yeah. I mean, the team was the biggest it had ever been.
How big was it?
I think we probably employed about 13, 14 people.
Yeah.
And then contractor-wise, we probably had about 20 of them at any given time. And it took me about 12 months to finally come to the decision that the landscape has shifted, but I have to. And this is actually no longer something I want to do. And we were approaching our 10 years of Gritty Pretty magazine. We were approaching our 40th issue. And I did start to have really strong thoughts. Like, I think I want to wind this up. And it was such an incredible decision. It was so incredibly difficult to make because the decision I would make, which I knew at the end of the day was for the betterment of my mental health, for my lifestyle, affected these women that I employed.
Yeah, did it feel like something you couldn't say out loud? Because you're like, oh
for
my
a
God.
long time.
And you know that feeling when you've had the thought, but you're like, oh God, I can't let it out.
Yeah, for a long time, especially because I love them so much, and we all are still so close, and I'm forever in awe of them, and I love watching them all thrive. But I knew that was a decision. Like, if I make that decision to essentially close this business, they lose their job. They have mortgages, they have children, they have rent to pay. And so I really sat on it for a very long time. And then once my daughter was getting that little bit older and that feeling of being stretched was at breaking point, that is really when I thought, okay, I am going to make this decision. Media is not what it used to be. Even I know that now. In launching a brand, I wouldn't book an ad. You know? I would book an influencer to create content for me. And so, I thought, well, I am going to make this decision, but I'm going to do it with integrity, and I'm going to give them so much notice, and I'm going to support them through their hiring process and help them find new roles. And it ended up being a really beautiful period for the closing out legacy team. Like, we ended up having this amazing and very wild farewell night. And I don't know, I kind of look back on that and think that was the perfect way for the brand to come to its end.
Yeah.
Because I was ready for my next chapter.
Yeah, for sure. When you've been in a circle for that long and you have something so amazing like 10 years of Gritty Pretty, how did you go with the feeling of, I remember the day that you posted that Instagram tile and it was just a couple words. How did you feel? Because everyone's obviously going to be like, oh my God.
Question. Yeah. And I mean, the lead up to that was obviously, it was very planned. It was very thought out. There'd been months of planning of going into making the announcement.
Yeah.
We'd let all of our clients know beforehand, so they all knew before readers.
Yeah.
It was a relief once it was shared, but then what I was not prepared for was this outpour of love. I wasn't prepared for it. I just kind of it was more thinking about this build up of the announcement. You know, Gritty Pretty's going to close. We're going to cease publishing. And then it was just like hundreds. My phone didn't stop. It just went all day of people I either knew or did not know, and readers who'd been there from the very, very beginning, from 10 years ago, you know, expressing their undying love for Gritty Pretty and saying how much they valued and trusted us as a platform. And I wasn't prepared for that. And then the emotional come down that day was really intense.
Yeah.
But it was also in a way reaffirming, because I don't know. I made that decision. I was so ready for this next chapter. I knew I wanted to go into producing my own line of products. And it was just kind of reaffirming that, let's finish on a high.
When you could make that decision and you've got those thoughts, and I'm asking you this because I know that there are so many women that feel the same way, and you're stretched, there's obviously ways and things that you could have done, like the old classic things happening right now on like Amy, the girl that has Odd Muse on in the UK. She's like on TikTok bawling her eyes out because she's 26 and has this huge business. She's like, oh my God, I'm so fucking stressed. And there are a lot of people being like, be creative director and just get a CEO. Like, what do you mean? Like, I know that there are so many ways and options that you could have retrofit that to make sure that people kept their jobs or Gritty Pretty stayed alive and you kept the brands happy, blah, blah, blah. What was it that literally ultimately made you wrap the whole thing up?
We did all of that. We had the most incredible leader and editor-in-chief in Danielle Gay. She was an amazing person that I had appointed, and she'd worked for the business for 3 years. So all of that was already in place. And like I said, we'd had conversations with a lot of other publishing firms about them acquiring us. But I didn't want to do an exit. I didn't want to have to work for them for the next 2-3 years while my babies was so little.
Yeah, okay.
Like my daughter was 12 months of age and I felt like I was missing out on her life.
Yeah.
For that business. And whilst that business was dear and to me and, I'd put so much into it and the team I love and adore, there is nothing I love more than my children. And they came first. And so it was more about them, to be honest, and how I could design my life so that I could still, be creatively fulfilled and be able to do all of that work that fills my cup, but I could be there for my kids and not miss out on those very fleeting moments that you only get once when they're really little.
Yeah, wow. So when you also kind of moved away from Gritty Pretty Productions stayed around for a little bit because obviously you had a fantastic reputation with these brands. Is that still around now?
No. And that was always part of the plan.
Okay.
Yeah. So it was kind of there to bridge the gap until Haleau had launched. It was just kind of, we had a lot of incredible clients who we'd worked with for a long, long time, and we continued to produce their campaigns, but the intention was always to wind productions down to and establish this new business, which I now get to work on.
Yeah, so talk to me about Haleau.
Well, it's been a long time coming.
I know. So first of all, the spelling. Yes. How did you land there?
Yeah, so, okay, this is an interesting story. So years ago, maybe 5, 6, 7 years ago, I knew I wanted to call the brand L'eau, L'EAU, which is French for water.
Okay.
I loved the shortness of it. I loved the phonetics of it. There were so many things I could have done with that as a pun. But you can't trademark it. Okay. So I went to my IP lawyer. She was like, you can't trademark it because it quite literally translates to water. But I couldn't let it go. I loved the letters. I loved the accent, all of it. And for years I sat on it whilst I was obviously still operating Gritty Pretty. And then I just was like, what if I just make a word? And I think at that time, that was when like Way had launched, Way Hair Care, Jen Atkins
Everyone
brand.
was making shit up.
Orbe, which a lot of people pronounce as Oribe, was around. And so I was kind of like, well, what if I just add HA onto the beginning and create a word, which is Haleau. And I knew that it would require a level of education so that people knew how to pronounce it correctly.
Yeah.
So I landed on Haleau, trademarked that, and then it wasn't until maybe a year or two later that I was speaking to someone who was French, and they were like, you know that Hal, Hale, translates to sun-kissed.
Oh, perfect.
And I was like, oh, well, that feels very serendipitous. So so Hal translates to sun-kissed, L'eau translates to water, and given all of the elements that make up the brand's identity, it just felt really right. So and because it was always going to be intended as a cosmetics brand, we were always going to start with illuminating highlighters, that idea of creating a beautiful luminous halo around someone.
Yeah.
It all just fit.
Yeah, absolutely. You can like see the campaign before you even did it.
Yeah.
So You are such a planner and
Mhm.
everything is like, I feel like you're Taylor Swift with your Easter eggs and you're like planning albums in advance. So how far advanced are you right now?
I mean, yeah, we've developed like a suite of products.
So
I
mentally, are you like 3 years ahead?
about 2.5.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm close.
Yeah.
That's so far ahead.
Yeah,
That's
so we've
amazing.
probably got about the next 2.5 years planned.
Okay.
And products developed, formulated, done. Which again, I was mindful of, and probably why it took me 3 years in development. I knew I wanted to launch with a single SKU,
Yeah.
a hero SKU. But if I just launched it, then I knew that the formulation process with a chemist can take 2 years.
Yeah.
So I didn't want to launch and then just be silent for 2 years. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
So I've created a suite and they will very slowly drop at the right time.
Right.
Whilst I can also create things in the meantime.
So talk to me about how this came to be with the shape, because the shape is so unique, but it's also fucking stunning. And all of your influencer seating, every time I saw it, I was like, ee!
Thank you.
And it's heavy.
Yeah, it's 150 grams, so it's lighter than an iPhone.
Yeah, okay.
I spent a long time obsessing over the weight.
Yes.
But the compact itself is modeled off my favorite necklace, which I can't believe I'm not wearing it now, which is a Baroque pearl.
Okay.
And so it's not the perfect spherical circle pearl that you might know of. It's the ones that look very organic and are warped in their shape, and they're almost disfigured in a way. And I love the way that those pearls, they undulate and every single one is different. There's no Baroque pearl that is ever the same.
Yeah.
And so we took my necklace and I took it to a designer who then modeled this shape around it. And that shape is what makes up our logo. It's actually the accent on our E, and it's also the shape of the compact.
Amazing.
And so every little curve in there is intentional. Even the curve on the base is intentional. It's very, very mindful that I didn't even want the base to be perfectly smooth. And so much of that, I think, goes back to my philosophy around beauty. I think that there is so much beauty in imperfection. And one thing I think I've actually always struggled with in my role in media and as a beauty editor is being part of the problem of perpetuating this idea of perfectionism, because I don't believe in it.
Yeah.
And so I think that what beauty and makeup and skincare is designed to is to be able to enhance every single person's unique features, not disguise them, not hide them, but to celebrate them. And so I loved this idea of creating a product and its packaging that took, I think the compact probably took about 1.5 years to nail. Creating something that feels special. It's a keepsake. You don't want to throw it out.
Never.
And that was really important.
Imagine.
To me.
What are you going to do?
Never.
Toss that in the bin?
I know. Unless you lost it maybe, and then you'd have to buy a new one. But I think, again, having that front row seat as a beauty editor, I saw every single product come to market, and most of them came in plastic. And I think when you have that front row seat and you are aware of the volume that is launched into beauty shelves every single year, month, week, it's quite disgusting.
Yeah.
Really. Like, the beauty industry contributes billions of tons into landfill. And I thought to myself, if I want to create my own product, my own brand, which I knew I wanted to, I didn't want to be part of that problem. And whilst we're definitely not perfect, I wanted to create something that was intentional. It was refillable. The idea is that you will only buy the vessel once. Yeah. And then I hope you will buy the refills after. Yeah. So yeah, that's why it also took such a long time. It took me 3 years, and I had a baby in that time as well.
Yeah. So because we're on Process the Podcast, the packaging itself, how did that occur to get from the mold that you mentioned into what is now this material? Like, how did that happen? What's the role of the person that did that?
So there were
worked with
several
you?
people. So
Okay.
at first what I wanted to do, I've got mine in my handbag, but what I wanted to do was use ocean recycled plastics.
Okay.
That was really important to me. Where I grew up as a child, I've always grown up near the ocean. I'm very passionate about conservation. And so I tried for about 9-10 months to make it work with recycled plastics. But it was too soft. It would snap. It would crack. And so I tried so many iterations with an industrial designer to get it working with a recyclable material. And we couldn't. It lost all integrity. There was no structural integrity to it. And so then we explored different materials, all sorts of different materials, resins. And then where we landed was on a mixed metal.
Right.
So what the compact now is a zinc alloy. It's a hybrid metal. And every single element that you see, like that's, as I mentioned, that's really intentional there on the bottom to not be smooth. But the placement of the hinge, where the clasp is, all of that, we would have to do 3D printing rounds on to be able to see, okay, that doesn't feel right, that doesn't open very well, that doesn't feel right in the hand. We would just do 3D print after 3D print. And eventually it took about 18 months to get it right. And then once we produced it in the zinc alloy metal, we knew that was going to be our material. Then it was like, about what color do we use? We'd done so many different colors. There was coppers, there was silvers, there was gunmetals. But gold felt really, I don't know, it just felt really right to me.
Was this person in Sydney?
We've got a mix of people. We've got a lot of our team in Melbourne. So we manufacture in Melbourne. It's all made in Australia. And then our designers are in Sydney.
How does it work when you're like trying to find someone to do that? Because even if I was
really
like
hard.
to be like, hello, I'm Eleanor. I have an idea and I need your help.
LinkedIn is great.
Is that what you found?
LinkedIn's helpful. And then it's kind of ends up being like, oh, they're not right, but they know someone, and then they'll connect you to somebody who works in product design or packaging design. And maybe they work on vessels but not boxes, and then they might recommend someone for boxes. So a lot of it's just starting with one contact and then just trying to meet others.
Because Emma Lewisham came on the pod and she was saying that they reached like 56, 57 iterations. And she was working with a masculine team. And I was like, how did you go being like, it's not right yet? And she's like, I literally had to gain the gusto within oneself to stand up to them and be like, it's not fucking finished. Like, it's not right. We're going again. Because you know that kind of energy where you're just like, I'm just a girl with an idea.
Yeah.
And then you're like, it's not finished.
I know. I think Emma is extraordinary, and she is one of two women who helped me in my development process.
Oh, wow.
And she shared a lot of contacts. The contacts that I didn't end up using, but she helped start those conversations. It connected me with people to be able to then go on to find who would become my manufacturer. So I think she's extraordinary and in a very unique position because she's obviously got shareholders, so that's a whole other thing to be able to have to answer to them. But Emma was amazing. I just think what she's built in Emma Lewisham is incredible, and I've been very lucky to kind of be part of her inner circle who trials her lab samples and helps, I guess, advise on feedback on products for her. So she's, again, been great with Haleau. But yeah, it was one of those things of the process itself. There were definitely moments where I felt impatient and I was frustrated and it was taking far too long. It was expensive because every iteration costs money. So every time I would get a 3D print or every time I'd get a formula sample back, if it wasn't right, then it was like back to the drawing board and there's another $1,500, $2,000. And so that gets pretty frustrating after a while. But I was committed. I wasn't there to like launch a brand that was mediocre. I couldn't put my name to that. So it was just about taking my time and waiting until we got it right and getting the sample almost where we needed it to be and then pushing the chemist a little bit further to get it where it needed to be. And same with the packaging is how can we create something that is beautiful but also sustainable?
What is, without giving too much away, obviously you're going to go into new products. right now, I would probably pitch it to somebody in my uneloquent beauty language. Like, how do you pitch it?
I would call it a skin first makeup highlighter.
Okay.
Yeah, it's really a skincare makeup hybrid. It's not just makeup that traditionally we've been, I guess we would consider to just sit on the surface of the skin. You probably don't know what filler is in it, maybe don't care. But what I wanted to create was makeup that had incredible skincare ingredients in it so that as you wore it throughout the day, it was actually treating your skin.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what is in it?
Okay, well, in this particular formula for our Pearl Balm, I can't even tell you how long it took. I think all up, it might have been maybe 20 samples that it took to arrive there. But it's got an amazing skin ingredients in there. So we've got beautiful things that are nourishing and hydrating, like jojoba oil, rosehip oil. We've got some other incredible things like quinoa extract, pea extract. There's vitamin E. But what I think I'm most excited about are the hero ingredients. One, pearl powder. So pearl powder is in there, and those pearls that I mentioned before, the Baroque pearls, we have them crushed down into a very fine milled powder, and that is what gives you this beautiful pearlescent glow that isn't glittery. It's not shiny.
What? Pearl powder?
Yeah. Which is not
fancy.
It is fancy, and it's not a cheap ingredient to source.
Had you used pearl powder and something else to know that this was possible?
You can ingest it.
Right.
You can have it in smoothies and, coffee. But I know I hadn't used it topically before. You can also, with the pure raw powder, actually just mix it with water to create like a mask paste as well.
Whoa.
And it's something that's been used in traditional Chinese medicine for a very long time. So I knew that was one of our heroes from the very beginning, and that's an ingredient that will appear in every single product that you ever see from Haleau. But then I wanted things in there that would help brighten the skin. So we've got bakuchi oil, which is like a plant-based retinol alternative. It's amazing for the skin, but really good for anyone who perhaps is a bit more sensitive and can't use retinol products, because retinol can also be incredibly active, and you can see a lot of adverse reactions to retinol and vitamin A. And then we've also got kakadu plum in there.
Yes.
Kakadu plum is the world's richest source of vitamin C. There is nothing else in the world that has more vitamin C potency than kakadu plum, and so we've got that in there as well.
My mum loves kakadu plum. When they used to own their hotel, she always put it in the moisturizer.
Oh, yeah.
She's like, and it has kakadu plum. I was like 13 and I was like, what the fuck?
It's a beautiful, really, really beautiful native ingredient. And then hyaluronic acid is like one of my all-time favorites. I always look for skincare that contains hyaluronic acid, and so we put that into our makeup as well.
Wow. Okay.
So it really is, coming back to your question, it really is a skin-first makeup brand.
What other brands in the world think of makeup like that?
I think we will see a shift in the next few years. I think we're going to start to see a lot of brands take that approach with their cosmetics. I think some that have been at the forefront are like brands like RMS Living, RMS Beauty Products. They were started by Rosemary Swift, and I think she's a real pioneer in that space. She was kind of one of the first to create.
So what RMS is? Rosemary Smith?
Yes. Her initials.
Okay.
She was one of the first to create really beautiful, clean makeup. Yeah. But I think where Haleau's point of difference is that we are refillable.
Yes.
And also our packaging is designed to be keepsake.
Yeah. So when you kind of look at where you go next and you're in the Australian market, what sort of products are you going to look at bringing out? Are you able to say?
Well, I mean, our friends across the pond in New Zealand will be happy to know that we'll start shipping there before the end of the year. I think we get messages every single day from Kiwis asking when it's going to arrive, but it's coming. And then the plan is really to expand our highlighting range into different textures. So you can expect maybe powders, maybe liquids. And then you can also expect some other really beautiful ritual products. both in the body category
Mm-hmm.
and then also from a wellbeing category.
What is it about the product game that is so different to you to Gritty Pretty?
Oh, I mean, when I think of Gritty Pretty, it's very service-based. It was a service-based business. So much of what we did and produce was in response to clients, these big beauty brands who would book campaigns with us. Whereas now I'm accountable to customers. And so there's a real difference in, I think, who we are catering for.
Yeah.
But what I love is all the elements that come with creating a brand, like the storytelling and, even weaving in parts of my childhood that have influenced the brand. I love bringing that to life.
Yeah, the storytelling piece for sure.
Yeah.
It's very evident.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
So when we work through the beauty brand and launching that, you have got a decade plus now of seeing the best of the best do it and understanding it from such a 360.
Yes.
What are the key pieces of your launch that you think, we're so fresh in your launch. So it's hard to be like
2.5 weeks ago.
It's hard to be like in hindsight, what did we do well? What did we do wrong? But what are you taking from what you're witnessing brands doing? As you said before, like influencer over booking paid, like that kind of stuff. Like how are you taking everything you've got from the review mirror and bringing this forward for your brand?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Even when I was coming up with how do we develop the press kits for media and, for content creators and influencer seeding, what does that look like? Because I'd received every single press kit under the sun and nothing annoyed me more than when I got a giant box, I'm not exaggerating this box, that had one eyeliner in it.
Like, what do I do with this? It doesn't even fit in the bin.
Nothing would make me more irate because there were many times where quite literally I couldn't fit packaging to be recycled into my yellow bin.
Yeah. It's ridiculous.
So that would make me really frustrated. And so I wanted the press kits to be intentional. I wanted...
The yellow bin was so Australian.
I know.
What am I going to do with this? It doesn't go in the yellow bin.
My yellow bin. But I wanted it... I didn't want there to be unnecessary packaging, like so much fluff that it took away from our values and our messaging.
Yeah.
So, but also I understood that with media, they would receive 10, 12 packages a day. And so how do you make that stand out? And a lot of that came down to our brand palette, which is beige and blue. I knew that I wanted our boxes to be blue. I knew I wanted them to be printed in safe vegetable dyes. I didn't want too much in there, but I knew that for some of them they needed to, just a little moment in there that felt special. Yeah. And so I think that's evident in all of the packaging that we put into our press kits and the packaging we left out.
I received one, giving the refillable, very well done. And I was like, I get the whole point. Even just from being like, and what's this? I'm like, I didn't even read the words yet. Yeah. But I get it. Yeah. I get it all.
That's so good to hear. And even that, right? Like it's a small brand, so we didn't have the budget to be able to do paid partnerships from the get-go. But what I had was stock that I could set aside and go, this is going to be set aside for gifting and allocate it to media. And the response has been incredible. Like some of the ways in which content creators have already shared the brand is exactly how I had hoped and envisaged it. Yeah. Because the product is so beautiful, and I had always hoped someone would have their handbag and they would pull it out and they'd do their little touch up and then they'd leave it there on the table because it's so beautiful. It looks like a little sculpture.
Yeah, I saw Jasmine Darlington. I gasped.
Oh, I know.
I was like,
I know.
She's done well.
Extraordinary. Oh my God. Yeah, she's incredible. And so I think to see people use it, to see people capture content with it, that has been so incredible to me, so valuable for the brand. Like the launch day was insane. I was such a mess. But I think seeing that play out was really extraordinary, and we were pretty down to the wire. Like all of the stock arrived the day before we launched.
Wow.
Yeah, 24 hours. before. Not planned. Like that I would like to avoid, but it was just, a string of delays that were beyond my control. But I think the benefit in that was that we weren't able to send press kits out until launch day.
Yeah.
And so what that meant was that for that first week, 4 or 5 days before I knew media actually had it, all of those sales, all of that engagement was purely organic. That was just from our customer base without any influence whatsoever. And then a week later, once influencers and content creators were producing all of this beautiful content on their platforms and channels, then we saw another spike and we were actually able to measure it. So if that ended up being a blessing in disguise.
It's wild when you think about that because, for example, Remy, which I haven't spoken to you about, an energy gummy that I've brought to market and we're relaunching in January. We're relaunching just because now I've learned the customer. Very wild card for me to be like, energy products, what? So now I know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
It's insane because I've got 3,000 bottles coming off a ship because I get them manufactured in China. And I'm like,
and you'd want to hope they're perfect. And you'd want to hope there's not a typo.
Yeah.
Elle Ferguson gave me that tip. She when she first launched Elle Effect, she had a typo.
Yeah, the barcode on our bottles that are coming is too small. Ooh. And I'm like, okay, I'll just reprint them. It's mine.
Yeah. And in some ways you have to kind of make those mistakes, I think, to learn from them. Sometimes they can be really expensive learnings.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is scary when you are when you're pulling the trigger on an order of that sort of volume. I just think you really have to believe in it. And I believe in Haleau's products so much that I was willing to put that much investment down.
I remember when I paid for it, I was literally like I did an exaggerated button on the Remy order because I was like,
yeah, it's a lot.
Okay, the money's leaving the account.
Scary.
It's just so not like a laptop on the couch moment. You have to be like,
I know. But then what's equally probably more thrilling is when you hit live on launch day.
And you're like, hello?
Yeah. I wasn't really prepared for that. I was kind of
But it's so funny on Shopify.
Yeah.
And you see it all and you're like, there's someone in Canada.
Yeah. I was so insane. We'd had scheduled to go live at 8 o'clock. So we'd communicated to all of our readers, and again with Gritty Pretty, we renamed all of Gritty Pretty's accounts into Haleau's name. So that was all very intentional. I knew that we had that database basically there. So that became all of Haleau's accounts. But I told everyone it's going to be 8 o'clock, and then I was like, well, what if the website glitches? What if there's something wrong with it? So I thought, okay, I'll just go into the office a little bit earlier. I'll go in 7, turn it on, just make sure we're good. Everything's working, links are all good. And I switched it on and it was just ding, ding,
Yay.
ding, ding. And I was so overwhelmed because I was like, why are people ordering? We're not meant to be
hungry for the pearls.
I couldn't believe it. I was so overwhelmed by the response, especially on launch dates. Yeah.
Let's talk about who is in your corner. As you mentioned, Emma Lewisham, someone like Elle Ferguson giving you tips on typos.
Yep. Yeah, and she also shared a lot of contacts too. She manufactures over in the States in LA, and she was very generous in sharing contacts with me. And again, I didn't end up using them because when I was kind of going through my process, I realized I wanted to manufacture in Australia. It costs a lot more, but it was actually very important to me that I did.
Yeah.
But yeah, those two women were so generous in sharing with me. And there's other women too in my circle, like Sally Obermeter and Maha Corbett from Swish. They're so generous and sharing just their learnings from running.
That also says
business.
A lot about you, because I think when you pass on a big contact like that, and they obviously have working relationships with these contacts, you're not going to do wrong by them, and you wouldn't leave a bad taste in anybody's mouth.
Yeah.
So you have to be the right person, I think, to acquire that.
Yeah. Yeah. And they are women that I have really long established relationships with as well. Yeah, and so I'm very grateful to them.
So you also have chosen Jessie from Hive HQ
Yes,
to help you with the PR elements.
Yes.
Who else have you got? Have you got like 3PL?
We
or
do.
Are you shipping from a warehouse? Like what are you up to with that space?
So when I approaching launch, one thing I knew that I wouldn't have the capacity to do, because I also am pregnant with my third child, is being able to pick and pack orders. I knew that
great for the content.
Yeah,
but no.
I've done it before. At one particular point in time, Gritty Pretty had its own online store, and so I've done those days of packing orders. My beautiful husband would be there on the floor with me packing them. But I knew with this brand and this business, I wanted to set it up for success from the very beginning.
Yeah.
And so I've put a large amount of investment into having an amazing warehouse partner. So we have a 3PL facility that's based in Sydney. As I mentioned, all of our cosmetics are made in Melbourne. We get them shipped from Melbourne to Sydney. They're stored in our warehouse. And then we have a 3PL that picks and packs out all of the orders.
How have you gone about your office? Because you mentioned that there's an office.
Yes.
As a new kind of business with one product only, so many people in this economy especially would be like, oh, I don't need that. I'm just going to,
For sure.
So
I don't need that, which is why I have like a local co-working office which I can tap into when I want to, but I don't need it all the time. I love working from home.
Yeah, I love it too.
Yeah.
I'm in a position at the moment where my team is outgrowing our current office space and I'm like, oh God. But I love that feeling of I'm just going to fucking do this and I'm going to grow into the person that I need to be to make this happen. Because pre-children, the listeners know that I'm like, yeah, I've got 18 months. I'm going to give it all I've got. Like, let's fucking go.
Yeah.
But I'm also like...
Yeah, and I think you feel your way with that. We've had small offices, really large offices. We've done co-working offices. We've had standalone commercial leases. But again, I think in this chapter of my life, how I wanted to design Haleau was in a way that worked with my lifestyle as a mother first and foremost.
Yeah, okay.
And so even with the business, like I've tried to keep as much as I can closer to home rather than 2 hours away.
It's also more appropriate, I think, a co-share space like that. You can then have the business registered to that address for privacy reasons and stuff. There are so many perks to that. They can take all your packages. Yeah. They can just do shit if you have to have meetings. Sure. And which part of Sydney are you in right now?
So I am based on the Central Coast, which is about an hour and a half north of Sydney.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
I love it. I love being out of the city. I don't want to be in the city.
I feel the same way. And everyone's like, are you mad? I'm like, no, just get me an ocean.
Yeah, exactly.
Who else is on the team right now helping you with it?
So obviously we've got the Hive HQ team. So you mentioned the beautiful Jessie, and she's assisting us with all of our PR. We've got an event coming up, which is kind of like the official launch event for Haleau. And so her and her team are really helping with that. And then we've got our chemists and our manufacturers. They're Melbourne based. We've got our Sydney based warehouse facility, and then that's pretty much it.
Do you intend to grow it and get help with like socials and all that?
I do all the socials. I think with Haleau, what I really want to do is just grow it to be intentional.
Yeah.
I don't want the giant team.
Yeah.
Because I've had big teams before and I know what that looks like.
And you have to lead it. And I feel like you sort of stepped out of that leadership role so that you could work with
what I feel I'm doing right now is I'm getting to be creative and actually work on the brand.
Yeah.
And I think when a business grows, what can sometimes happen is you actually move further and further away from the work.
Yeah.
Because at that point, you're just running the wheels and the cogs of a business to make sure it turns.
Yeah.
And I just don't want to lose this level of creativity and connection that I have with my customer right now.
Yeah.
Like, obviously, I want the business to grow, but I want it to grow in a way where I don't lose out on that. And there's another amazing female founder, Sophie from Gentle Habits, and she's for me like a really really inspiring example of how you can run a successful, profitable business, be present as a mother, be able to, in her case, work with her husband, work close to home. She lives in Yamba. and still be able to do the work that she loves without having to manage this giant team.
Yeah. Have you read the book Company of One?
No, I haven't.
It's really good,
Oh.
but I think you're already in the ethos of it. But basically, it's like about stripping all of that away. And you can have, if the emails get too much or the socials get too much, just have a contractor. Like, it's fine. You don't need to take on this huge kind of life that is not your own, that runs away from you.
Yeah, I've been sitting with these ideas of rejecting the hustle culture for a little while.
Yeah.
And I think I was definitely in that and part of that in my 20s, both when I was working in magazines and leading
very
Gritty
girl
Pretty.
boss era.
It was very girl boss era. It was that, it was very much all of that. But I think what I've witnessed, and I've seen this with a lot of businesses, especially those that end up being acquired, is that they lose their sparkle when the founder is no longer doing what they actually set out to do from the very beginning. And I think my priorities have changed. Like, definitely 10 years ago, if you had asked me, I would have said, I want Gritty Pretty to have this team of like 40 editorial and sales staff on it. And that excites me.
It's going to look like a Sheer Lux or something.
Yeah. And that would have excited me. And I'm love that was the headspace I was in. But it's no longer an idea of success to me. What I'm doing right now is I feel like I'm living my version of success.
Yeah, I honestly thought that our chat would be more reflective on Gritty Pretty and how that came to an end. But it's been matched with such an incredible, like, imagine like a Lego piece and you've just added a fucking ramp on the end. It's like, boom.
I do a lot of Lego with my son, so
you know what I mean? Like it would, like, it feels like it's been wrapped up in a bow to only be turbo accelerated into what you really feel you should be doing.
Yeah, I've had this conversation with a few people lately, and I feel like I am living my life's purpose now. And I feel so much more back in alignment with who I am and what my values are now as an almost 37-year-old. When I started Gritty Pretty, I was so young. Yeah. Like, I was in my 20s and there were things that were important to me and then not important to me. And now I feel like Haleau is symbolic of all the things I care about as a person. And so I love that I'm now in this season. But it hasn't come without going through challenges and riding those waves as a business owner. I've certainly had those. But I think, like I said, my priorities have shifted. I want Haleau to be a much loved Australian beauty brand, but I also know I don't want it to get the team to get so big that I don't get to do what I love.
Do you have ambitions for it to be international?
Yes, we definitely do, and that will be a major focus for next year as the range expands. But for now, for at least till the end of the year, the focus is on Australia and New Zealand.
How do you balance the ambition for the brand, but also the softer side of you with priorities of being a mum and being there for that?
Well, I'm pretty strict with how I work. So with my working week, so I work Monday to Wednesday.
Right.
They are my Haleau days. Then Thursday I have my daughter and she's at home with me and she still thankfully naps during the day. She naps like 3 hours a day. And in that 3-hour window I will work on a Thursday, and then on Friday I do not work. I'm with both of my children. And I'm very strict about those boundaries. So what I can do in 3 days is equivalent to what I used to be able to do in 5-6 days a week.
Wow.
So my output, I think, is consolidated into that time.
Yeah.
Because again, like I said, the time I have with my kids, I want to protect it.
Yeah.
And then in terms of intentionally scaling, it will be about working with the right retail partners who we will bring Haleau to, both in Australia and then abroad.
I love that.
Yeah.
Beyond the 2.5-year mark that you've given yourself, Emma Lewisham said to me that Emma Lewisham will be here in 100 years. She said it so fucking firmly. I'm rattled to this day to be like, oh my word. Do you see Haleau as your chapter for the next?
Definitely for the next 10. That's kind of as far as my brain will go. What it looks like beyond that, there's
very
definitely there's definitely goals of where I think it can sit. For me, I don't think we so much as have like a cosmetic competitor in Australia. But when I look at really successful brands or business models abroad, I think what Gucci Westman has done with Westman Atelier and building that as a $100 million business is something that I do think Haleau can get to. And I guess it will really be about when I want to grow the team and bring in those real senior leadership roles. What does that look like? How does that support me?
Yeah.
Again, so that I'm still protecting those boundaries that I have worked really hard to be able to create for myself.
I love these so much. Yeah. A few people have said to me that process is now like, well, I'm a publisher. Because I'm doing and I'm like, what do you mean?
Yes.
I'm just chatting to people that I love. Yeah. But I'm going about that new journey now of like sponsors, video, as you know. Do you have any advice for me?
My advice would be when working with sponsors to make sure that you know with absolute certainty that that is a brand or service or company that your audience is going to be interested in.
Yeah.
I think nothing creates a level of distrust or even disinterest than, hearing something about pet food, on a business podcast.
Yeah. Okay.
And so I think if you can make sure that your podcast sponsors align with your listeners and with your audience, that's only going to benefit process. It's only going to benefit your listeners. It's only going to benefit the client and the sponsor. So always maintaining that level of authenticity when working with anyone is key. But I agree. I think that's what I love so much about this new age of media. Is where we're at now, is that we have the ability to see podcast platforms become brands within themselves. I think it's such a incredible, interesting time. And I was actually on the way here listening to a You Beauty podcast with Justine Cullen, and she was talking about this transformation of magazines through to TikTok and what that looks like for tweens. And just observing how things have shifted even in the last, not just the last 10 years, but even in the last 3, it has been so interesting to me. And I know there's a lot of fear around the shift in what TikTok looks like, especially for young people and young girls. But as a whole, looking at media, I'm really excited by it. And like I said, when I was developing Haleau, and thinking, okay, well, if I allocate this amount of spend to marketing with, my countless, endless dollars, where would I put them? Would I go and book a full page ad in a magazine? No.
Yeah.
And I think what was so interesting about this time was like 2 weeks after we launched, I got an email from British Vogue UK, and they wanted me to advertise Haleau in their issues. And it was just so reaffirming to me that I know I am in the right place moving outside of media now and being brand side, because I know exactly where I would put my investments and I know where I would get that return. And the reality is that is from content creators, it's from audio platforms, it's from podcasts. That's where we are seeing conversion, and whether you like it or not, that is a reality. That's where people consume media. And so it felt very full circle to get this email of someone cold emailing me for advertising dollars when I had done that 10 years ago myself. Wow. Yeah.
Hearing you speak so much about your gut and just going with it and being able to really look at facts, there's so much. I read this book, From Good to Great, Have you read that
No,
before?
I feel like I need to take you down all these recommendations.
It's one that I got told that Joe Horgan loves it, so I was like, well, okay. I must listen.
Whatever she says, we shall take as gospel.
And my boyfriend read it before I had the chance to. He loves stealing my books. And then he was like, you have to read this and you have to read it now. And it was literally about facts. And it was just like cool, like as founders, we can be so, but it will be. And like we're so creative as people that we consistently live in our imagination because we have to. But then that also can translate into you having very much so rose-colored glasses over things.
Yes, living in a fantasy world.
Yeah.
Yes.
And being like, okay, well, that's just, no, that's the reality, but it's not really because it's in my head. And in my head, it's way better and just give it some time and whatever. But I've started to operate with a lot more fact-based work and mindset. And I feel like you're a really great example of that, of being quite intentional with yourself and knowing what feels true to you and then acting upon it.
Yeah, I think I don't know if the whole left, right brain theory is correct, but I feel like I'm that way inclined. I'm a very creative person, but I can also think quite laterally.
Yeah.
And make decisions from that space.
Yeah.
Like make a really informed decision.
Yeah.
But yes, you're right. I think, you can, as a founder, live when you're so deeply connected to your business or whatever it is you have created from the ground up. It is very easy to become attached to an idea of it's going to be okay if I do this.
Yeah.
And sometimes it won't be. And sometimes then, like you said, if you have rose-colored glasses on, they can reach a point where you don't see the writing on the wall.
Yeah.
And for me, it was like, I can see these things changing. I can see revenue being spent in different places. Publishing and digital publishing is not what it used to be.
Yeah.
I don't want to be part of it anymore. And sometimes, that, like I said, that can be a really hard thing to arrive at.
Yeah.
And that would be incredibly telling for something like retail in this environment.
Yeah.
Like bricks and mortar retail. But I think it's important to go, no, this is what the reality is, and this is how we need to adapt in response to. So that's what I love so much about small business and being able to operate your own entity is I think you're able to be so much more agile than when you work in a larger corporation.
Totally.
And I've worked in those corporations before. Sometimes there's just so much bureaucratic, red tape that things are so slow to move through. But what I love is, when I want to do something, I can just make the decision to do it.
And the economy, especially the creator economy, the speed that social media works at now, it needs fast decisions. It needs things to happen.
Yeah. But I think, again, it's coming back to working with those partners and, if we're talking about content creators who I deeply admire and respect, for Haleau, it will be about working with the right ones that align with us, not just because they are who they are or they have a following of X amount. It will be about what makes sense for us.
Yeah, there's an email sitting in my inbox right now about a pair of guests that want to come on the podcast that my gut's like, no, but the numbers wouldn't lie on that. And they're like, no, you should do that for the exposure piece. And from having this conversation with you, I know that in the past 90 minutes, I've just made the decision to be like,
good.
No.
That's good. Yeah.
I'm so excited for you and for this chapter. This is epic and the product is so beautiful.
Thank you very much.
All the iterations, everything feels worth it because I gasped.
Oh,
and everybody did. Everybody was like, oh my God.
Oh, that's so nice.
Because it's just so different.
Yeah, it's terrifying. I was much more nervous launching this business than my last. I think because there's something tangible. Yeah, I think I was so terrified because I was like, well, some people might not like it, and that's okay. It's not for everyone. It's like anything in beauty, not every face cream is going to be suitable for every single person. But I am really proud of what I've created and what the team has helped create. And I really think it's only the beginning.
It is. What are we, week 2.5?
Yeah.
Amazing.
I know. Yeah, I had Sophia Bush slide into my DMs yesterday, so that was crazy. If anyone loves
One Tree Hill.
One Tree Hill,
oh my God.
Brooke Davis.
What does she want? Gifting?
No, she accidentally sent a DM to her friend and tagged us in this group chat just saying how much she loved this brand. She was like, look at this brand, look at their packaging, it's beyond.
Oh my God.
And then she was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I've just realised I've.
Were you like, you are most welcome, doll. How
Yeah,
can we help?
I know. So, well, yeah, she's going to be the first person in America to receive it, which is exciting. But if Veronica Mars slides in next, I think I might just have a heart attack.
Oh my God. Wow.
I know,
You made a 3PL in America.
Really telling my age. To be a One Tree Hill fan.
No, I love One Tree Hill.
Circa 2003.
Yeah.
It's a great time.
It was a great show.
Great time.
Timeless.
Yeah.
It's fun.
Yeah. But crazy that 2 weeks later we have someone from, an incredible actress just sliding on in.
I work with a really beautiful Australian swimwear brand called Sheila and do all their content and stuff for them. Sarah Jessica Parker just bought some the other day and she was like, the Sarah Jessica Parker, and she went through all the dark web to make sure that actually was her.
Yes.
We were shook. The group chat just absolutely popped off. But it's crazy. They find you and it's like, oh my God.
And then they have their shipping name aliases as well, which is very interesting. But yeah, like I said, I feel like this is just the beginning for Haleau. And so I'm very excited about what the future looks like and how I get to, I guess, shape and mold it in a way that works as a, female founder and mother.
How can people find you and how can people find the product?
So we are available online at haleaubeauty.com. You can find us across all social platforms. And we will also be available at some very, very select boutiques and skincare clinics as well.
Okay. So how do you spell it for people that are literally doing it right now?
Haleau beauty.com.
Okay. Amazing. Thanks so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
Bye. That is it for today's episode. We have packed the show notes with links and references to pretty much everything that we talked about. I hope this podcast has inspired you and made you just that little bit more obsessed with your own creative process and practice. If you loved it, please hit the subscribe button or the follow button, depending on where you're listening, or send it to a friend that's building something creative of their own. You guys know you can always DM me. Please let me know if you loved this episode. Process is a tiny little baby in the scheme of the podcast land, so we need all the love that we can get. You can find us sharing way more about the antics and the behind the scenes of Process over on Instagram and TikTok at Process the Podcast. And we're also now on YouTube, so you can find your episodes there too. I will see you next Sunday.